the building of a thriving socialist country. Foreign Languages Publishing House, Pyongyang, Korea. Juche 103. 1. Preface. In this book, you will read how the centuries-old desire of humanity, the dream of prosperity, came true in the reality of the DPRK, where the Juche idea and the Song'un idea were applied. We are pleased even to hear the words of happiness and prosperity. Everybody desires for happiness, as he psychologically wants happiness. The happiness is also closely linked with the rise and fall of a country and nation, the big social collective. That is because man is a social being that is inconceivable, apart from the social collective, the country and nation. People, therefore, have desired after the country and the world that would provide them with the happy life. The outlines of the ideal society were depicted in Utopia of Thomas More and City of the Sun of Campanella. They simply wrote the desire and the ideal of people, failing to give the practical possibility and the scientific 2. way of realizing the desire. They were named as utopian socialism. History recorded military commanders and political leaders who expanded their territory with continuous conquest wars or created the material wealth and built monuments, under the pretext of bringing about the people's happiness or country's prosperity. Their will and practice, however, proceeded from the one-sided understanding of the people's demand for happiness and their ideal for prosperous country. It is very hard to materialize their essential demand for happiness and prosperity. Therefore, a head of state explained that the people wanted to ride a horse of happiness, but were destined to run after the cart of happiness. Is this desire, then, impossible, only remaining as an ideal? No. I try to help the readers understand the weight and the true value of the answer to this question through the explanation of how this desire is coming true in the DPRK that is building a thriving socialist country. 3. Contents. 1. The ideal of state building based on the people are my God. 6. 1. The ideal of Kim Il-sung. 8. 2. The ideal of Kim Jong-il, the clear-cut goal of state building. 14. 2. The look of thriving Korea. 23. 1. Ideological and political giant. 25. 2. Military giant. 35. 3. Economic giant and civilized nation. 47. 3. The way to building of thriving country. 63. 4. Song'un era's term. 72. 1. Super intensive forced march for on-the-spot guidance. 73. 2. Field style life. 80. 5. People's increasing happiness. 84. 4. 1. Blessings with food, clothes and housing. 84. 2. Full happiness is oncoming. 92. 6. The future of building of thriving country. 100. 6. 1. The ideal of state building based on the people are my God. How do you, the readers, understand the word ideal? According to the Korean dictionary, an ideal is a representation of final goal of the people's life and activities. Although you have a little difference in the understanding of this word, but you may mainly agree with this definition. People make every effort to materialize their ideals, throughout their life. Their ideals might be different in value, according to what kind of view of life they have. Those who have the individualistic view of life may regard the promotion and wealth as an ideal and thus try to materialize this egoistic ideal, whereas those who have the collectivist view of life regard the contribution to the development of the collective as an ideal and devote themselves for its materialization. Human history knows those who have lived true life, with a beautiful ideal of devoting themselves for the collective instead of their own interests. No heroes and political leaders, however, set it as their 7. Ideal to fully materialize the essential demand of the people. The development, prosperity, and prospect of a country and the happiness of the people largely hinge on the leader's ideal and practical ability. Therefore, all the people who desire for them are waiting for the leader equipped with the qualification and ability to materialize their desire. Centuries-old history remembers those who had the noble virtue and the politicians who contributed to the national development and prosperity. However, if they had wisdom, they lacked virtue and vice versa, and therefore the leaders could not fully satisfy the expectation of the people, though they made contributions. History, however, does not know the leaders who regarded the people as the most valuable beings and their essential demand and ideal as their own, devoting all their lives for the national prosperity and the people's happiness. Korea, situated in the sun rising east, is the country blessed with the great leaders who regard the people's desire for the national prosperity and happiness as their own ideal, devoting all their lives to realize their desire, as groped after so much by humanity. 8. 1. The ideal of Kim Il-sung. The Korean nation that has made brilliant history, with their extraordinary wisdom and talents since the ancient times, was turned into the colony of the Japanese imperialists in the contemporary times, with its state power being extremely weakened, owing to the corrupted rulers of the Korean feudal government. The Korean people had suffered from the miserable destiny of colonial slaves, being deprived of their state power and even their language, alphabet, and names. The Korean people had been eager for the peerlessly great man who would save the destiny of the ruined country and build an ideal society free from exploitation and oppression. Comrade Kim Il-sung, who fought against the Japanese imperialists depending on the arms to save the nation, was the great leader whom the Korean people had, for the first time, in thousands of years of long history. After creating the Juche idea that regards the people as the most precious and powerful beings and that clarified the ways of realizing their demand for independence, he founded the anti-Japanese People's Guerrilla Army, the first revolutionary armed force, and 9. Conducted bloody struggle against the Japanese imperialists and thus restored the deprived country. In the liberated country, he chose the road of progressive democracy, with the noble ideal he had kept since the days of the anti-Japanese struggle to build the thriving country where the people live without envy, as the masters of the country. In this course, he established the People's Democratic Republic that provides the people with the genuine freedom, rights, and happiness. With the establishment of the Republic, the Korean people have become the true masters of the state and society, for the first time in the history, and thus the national prosperity and the people's happiness fully ensured. The 3-year Korean War ignited by the U.S. imperialists was fierce war that decided the destiny of the country and the people. While issuing the original strategy and tactics for victory of the war, shouldering the destiny of the country and the people upon himself, he planned the building of the thriving country and made full preparation for its realization. With the farsight into the future of the country, he called the students fighting in the fronts back to universities to continue the study, though it lacked the fighters. And he told the officials to begin the 10. Reclamation of the Paikcha Plateau and complete the general plan for the post-war rehabilitation, in the flames of the war. Since the fierce days of the Fatherland Liberation War, the enviable universal free medical care system has been enforced. This fact only tells his warm love for the people and far-sighted initiatives for the building of the rich and strong country. One day in the wartime, a foreign pressman planned to visit the Supreme Headquarters to cover the war situation. He was very keen on knowing the prospect of the war, concerning the large-scale new offensive of the U.S. imperialists. After waiting for a while, he entered the room where Kim Il-sung was staying. He saw Kim Il-sung was reading something and a soldier standing by him, explaining something. An official whispered him that the Supreme Commander was examining the soldier's study. Kim Il-sung was preparing the peoples who would study for the post-war rehabilitation. In surprise, the pressman silently came out, without feeling the need to cover the war situation. When the world was worrying about the destiny of the war, which was too difficult for the young DPRK, the 11. Supreme Commander took giant step towards the goal of building a rich and strong country, with the firm conviction in victory. With the ever-victorious wisdom, strong will, ardent love for the people and the full conviction in the people's inexhaustible strength, Comrade Kim Il-sung safeguarded the country against the armed invasion of the U.S. imperialists. This is one of the great contributions he made to the country. Great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung, who had defeated 2 imperialist forces in 1 generation, set it as his lifelong goal to build the strong people-centered socialist state and made unremitting efforts for its realization. Through Kolyma movement, he led the socialist revolution to victory and built the socialist country free from exploitation and oppression, the first of its kind in the East. After having built the socialist country where the people become the masters and everything serves them, Kim Il-sung devoted his all to make socialist Korea dignified with independence and strong with self-sufficient economy and self-reliant defense. Great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung said, "We have solved all problems of socialist construction our own way by adopting independent 12 and creative stands and have built the socialist power we see today on the ruins of the war by displaying the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance and strenuous effort." Thinking that there is no revolutionary formula or prescription universal to any times and any country, he placed the interests of the country, the revolution, and the people to the fore, enforcing independent politics throughout his life, without agitating before the pressure and deception of the foreign forces. He always went among the people to discuss the state affairs face to face with them and made the policies, reflecting their will and demand in conformity with the interests of the Korean Revolution. Proceeding from the requirement of the developing revolution and the then situation, he set forth the line of simultaneously building the economy and defense industry and strengthened the self-defensive power to safeguard the country's sovereignty and durable peace, and thus built the strong military power, turning the country into the impregnable fortress. In the short span of 14 years after the war, he built the socialist industrial state and solved the problems of the economic structure, raw materials, fuel, and technique from the Juche-oriented stand, thus laying the strong foundations of the self-sufficient economy. 13. In the period of building the independent economy, some officials, with a view to developing the economy, proposed to Comrade Kim Il-sung the plan of developing the economy on the basis of petroleum, as the other countries of the world did. At this proposal, great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung said that if we build the economy like that in Korea where petroleum is not available, our economy would lose independence, adding that we have to build the economy on the basis of our bountiful resources. As a result, the DPRK did not suffer from the oil crisis that had swept over the world in the 1970s, developing without being affected by the world economic upheavals. With the far-sighted wisdom, the extraordinary insight and the motto of "the people are my God," he opened the great heyday in the Juche-oriented socialist Korea, by dint of independent politics and the politics of love. When he met a foreigner, Comrade Kim Il-sung said that his greatest pleasure is to live in the people's love and trust, and that his worth of life is to devotedly serve the people. With the great desire and ideal to make the people live in a thriving country, he devoted his whole life, regarding the people as God. 14. Always finding himself among the people to show their way ahead, he made unremitting efforts even at the old age of over 80, visiting factories and farms. His devoted efforts made the DPRK become powerful socialist country. He liberated the country deprived by the foreign force, repulsed the armed invasion of the imperialist Allied forces, and built the people-centered socialist country on his land. Human history does not know such a state leader as great Comrade Kim Il-sung. 2. The ideal of Kim Jong-il, the clear-cut goal of state building. It was the ideal of President Kim Il-sung and Comrade Kim Jong-il to build a rich and strong country. On the last day of the year 1994, when we suddenly lost great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung, the father of socialist Korea, Comrade Kim Jong-il said that President Kim Il-sung had devoted his whole life for the people's freedom and happiness, and that it was his idea and cause to make the country richer and stronger, adding that it is his steadfast decision to make his country richer and stronger. On the first day in 1995, Comrade Kim Jong-il inspected the snow-covered dwarf pine tree post of the 15 kPa. While returning after his inspection, he told again that it is his ideal and decision to turn the country into the people's paradise and powerful socialist country which is the strongest and richest in the world. His lifelong ideal was not formed in a moment. In his early days, he had the great idea to add glory to the country, with the warm love for the country and the people. Immediately after liberation, he visited Kongjin on the coast of the East Sea along with anti-Japanese heroine Kim Jong-suk. Looking at the grandiose sunrise, he told her that the sun which shines over the world is the best. She explained to her son, Kim Jong-il, that the sun gives light and life to all things in the world, without which all things on this land cannot survive, and therefore the most benevolent and great in the world is compared with the sun, adding that the Korean people respect fatherly Kim Il-sung as the son of the nation who restored the country and illuminates the bright future. Carefully listening to his mother, young Kim Jong-il seriously said that he would make Korea the country of the sun, the best country where the people live with happiness. At his young age, he had such big ambition and idea for the country and nation. 16. After his admission into Kim Il-sung University on September 1, 1960, he recited a poem, O Korea, I will add glory to thee, full of his decision to add glory to Korea, on Ryongnam Hill. As I stand on Ryongnam Hill at sunrise, the land of 3000 greets my eyes. Learning the leader's great idea, I will be the master of the revolution in this land, Korea. O Korea, I will add glory to thee. On the road of Juche I will be firm and steady under the guidance of the leader great. Braving the raging waves and storms, I will lead Korea into the future. O Korea, I will make thee famous. His poem O Korea, I will add glory to thee was the historic declaration of his noble ideal. This ideal, inheriting his great parents' soul of loving the country and the people, was further developed and cemented as the will in his special experience through which he has grown up, hearing the gunfire in the anti-Japanese Revolutionary War and the fatherland. 17. Liberation War, and personally participated in the post-war rehabilitation, the socialist revolution and the building of socialism. This noble ideal and will of his were materialized, thanks to his wise and outstanding leadership over the building of socialism in the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, turning the DPRK into a socialist paradise. In the people-centered socialist society, the inexhaustible power of the people who are firmly united around the party and the leader strengthened the country's power, enabling the people to lead a worthwhile life. The Korean people thought it natural to receive the ever-increasing social welfare and happiness, such as the life as the master of the state and society, the abolition of tax, free education, free medical care, etc. They did not know how high ideal he has for the country's prosperity and the people's happiness. On January 1, 1999, General Kim Jong-il set it as the goal to build a thriving socialist country, the higher and clear-cut goal for the state building. The goal of building a thriving socialist country is the crystal of the noble ideal of Kim Jong-il, who desired to make his dear people live without envy in the world. The height of a great man is the height of his ideal. 18. And the height and loftiness of the ideal depend on the orientation, greatness, practicality, and scientific accuracy of the ideal. His ideal of building a thriving socialist country was oriented to the prosperity of the land of Juche and Kim Il-sung's nation and to the happy future of the people, and is based on practical possibility and scientific ways, thus becoming the noblest ideal. When the DPRK was in the most difficult situation, he had the initiative to build thriving socialist country and made thorough preparations, true to the idea of great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung. In the late 20th century occurred was the tragedy that socialism ended in the former Soviet Union and the East European countries that treated Marxism dogmatically and even negated its revolutionary essence, following revisionist policies. The tentacles of the imperialists, including the US, that had confronted with socialism, spending huge amount of human and material resources for decades since its rise, reached socialist Korea that holds the red flag of independence. The confrontation structure changed from the Soviet-US confrontation in the Cold War period into the DPRK-US confrontation. And the imperialist allied 19. Forces headed by the US that behaves as the international police considerably intensified their anti-DPRK moves. The Korean people were in the worst condition, owing to the fact that they suffered from the big national loss with the demise of Comrade Kim Il-sung, who was the father of socialist Korea and the Korean nation. The imperialist allied forces' suffocation moves against the DPRK, the successive natural disasters and the fall of the socialist markets. At this juncture, Comrade Kim Jong-il set forth the Song-un politics comprehensively, with the death-defying will to safeguard the destiny of the country and the people against the imperialism, by dint of force of arms. He went through all trials, with the big responsibility for the country and the people, the death-defying will and the superhuman devotion. This look was imprinted in the mind of the Korean army and people as the look of the son of the nation and the father of the nation. The political and ideological power of the DPRK and the single-hearted unity of her army and the people around the party and the leader were further strengthened to be an invincible power in the course of making the arduous march and the forced march under his Song-un leadership. He considerably intensified the military power. 20. Continuously inspecting the Korean People's Army units and the sectors of defense industry. Along with this, he laid the foundations for a new leap in the economic construction and the people's living standard, giving on-the-spot guidance to different sectors of the national economy, with the innovative vision and the extraordinary art of leadership. As recognized by the world people, the political, ideological and military powers of the DPRK rank with the powerful countries, and the building of the economic giant became a matter of time, by dint of the special Song-un politics that makes it possible to safeguard the national sovereignty and open the vista for its prosperity with force of arms. Under the condition in which a strong springboard was made for the building of a thriving country through several-year arduous struggle on the road of the Song-un revolution, it was practically possible for her to build a thriving socialist country in the near future. Possibility is not practicality. In order to realize the cause of building a thriving country at the earliest possible time by using the practical conditions to the maximum, she needed the scientific ways that guarantee the realization. What is the shortcut to the building of a thriving country? 21. It is to break through the cutting edge in all fields, mobilizing the mental strength of the people, the strongest weapon of Kim Il-sung's nation under the banner of Song-un that displayed great vitality in the shortest span. Likewise, the ideal of Comrade Kim Jong-il, who planned to build an invincible thriving socialist country which any enemy could not attack and where all the people lead a happy life without any worry, was the scientific ideal that depends on the future orientation, the practical possibility and the correct ways. What kind of country is, then, the thriving socialist country, the crystal of the ideal of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, the centuries-old dream of the Korean people for the prosperity? 23. To the look of thriving Korea. At present, many people over the world are keen to know what kind of a country is the thriving country the Korean people are now building. Korea is a small country. Under the persistent blockade of the imperialist Allied forces and in the confrontation with the strong enemy, the DPRK had to and has to overcome a lot of difficulties. How can she achieve prosperity? For those who have the existing idea with which they characterize the big power according to the size of population or territory or the level of economic development or the military power, it might be difficult to understand the DPRK's goal to build a thriving country. This is natural. The thriving country she is building has a new look fundamentally different from the past and the present big powers. In the past, those countries with big population or territory or the developed economy had been regarded as big powers. This is wrong understanding, because the people are the fundamentals of the country and they 24. Demand and build the strong country. It is correct understanding of a thriving country to measure it on the basis of the criterion of whether it has full power to defend and realize independence, the life of the people, placing them on the center. What is the thriving country planned by General Kim Jong-il? Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il said that by the thriving country, he means thriving socialist country where the state power is strong and everything is prospering and the people live without envy in the world. The Juche-oriented thriving socialist country is the country where the people's desire is realized and all fields like politics, ideology, military affair, economy, and culture develop and prosper and the people live without envy in the world. In this sense, the concept of the thriving socialist country of the DPRK is not natural or geographical concept that is expressed by the size of population or territory. It is socio-political concept that means the power of a socialist state observed in the perspective of realizing the independence of the people. The look of the Juche-oriented thriving socialist country will be explained according to the fields of social development such as political and ideological giant, military giant, economic giant and civilized nation. 25. 1. Ideological and political giant. Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il said that our political and ideological power and military power can be said to be already in the position of a thriving country, as recognized by the people over the world. A thriving country means the country where the entire people are united on the basis of one ideology and will. A thriving country must have strong national power among which the political and ideological power comes to the fore. This being the case, the first criterion of a giant is the political and ideological power. That is because the politics is of decisive importance in social development, and the unlimited power of ideology guarantees the development and prosperity of a country and nation. The genuine giant with the strong political and ideological power is the country where an ideology of independence prevails. On that basis the entire people are firmly united to be a political force, making independent politics internally and externally. The power of the people who are firmly united on the basis of one ideology and will is inexhaustible and invincible. 26. The voice of the people is the voice of God. It is the most important for the development and prosperity of a country to attract the people's mind and get their support. Therefore, philosophers have created the ideas of virtue and politicians tried to materialize the ideas but all failed. The dream of humanity for the building of a political and ideological giant where the people shape the destiny of a country and nation independently in unity based on one ideology and will came true in the DPRK in the 20th century. This was possible in the DPRK, because the Workers' Party of Korea has followed the idea of independence that reflected the people's demand, defended their right to independence and interests internally and externally and constantly set forth the independent politics for their demand. And it has set forth the benevolent politics, taking care of the entire people with the boundless love. The independent politics is the political idea and mode of politics that characterize the Workers' Party of Korea. Comrade Kim Il-sung and Comrade Kim Jong-il, the great leaders of the Korean people have set forth the independent politics, with noble political idea of the people are my God, high political ability and strong gut and thus consolidated the party's political foundations. 27. Enhanced the national dignity and considerably strengthened its power. Great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung set forth original independent politics throughout his life against dogmatism and flunkyism. He enforced the land reform on the principle of free confiscation and free distribution, considering the desire of the peasants who wanted to possess their own land after getting free from the colonial and feudal fetters, though the cooperativization was needed to rapidly develop the backward agriculture after the liberation. He put forward and materialized the original policy of agricultural cooperativization that was designed to transform the form of economy before the technical transformation, according to the demand and revolutionary zeal of the peasants for the cooperativization after the war. In transforming the capitalist trades and industry in a socialist way, he transformed the private handicraftsmen and tradesmen into the socialist working people through education, in a different way from other countries. While leading the socialist construction, he set forth the unique line of building the economy in the way of simultaneously developing the light industry and agriculture while giving priority to the development of 28. The heavy industry and the general line of the socialist construction to conduct the three revolutions ideological, technical, and cultural, while constantly strengthening the people's government. Thanks to the independent politics of President Kim Il-sung who gave priority to the people's independent right and the interests of the revolution under the banner of Juche, the social and political foundations of the Workers' Party of Korea was consolidated and the DPRK became a strong socialist country independent in politics, self-sufficient in economy and self-reliant in defense, putting an end to the bitter history full of flunkyism and subjugation. Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il is an outstanding statesman who created and materialized the mode of Song-un politics, thus setting an excellent example of the modern independent politics. It is not so easy to follow the independent politics for the country's dignity, in the chaotic situation in which the imperialists invade sovereign state and judge a head of state in the international court in their own interests. You can fully understand this from the fact that Saddam Hussein of Iraq, who shouted the defense of the national sovereignty and interests, and Milosevic of Yugoslavia became the victims of the arbitrariness and 29. Tyranny of the imperialists. In the grave trial period, Kim Jong-il with the strong political conviction held higher the banner of independence and Song-un for the country's sovereignty and the people's destiny, saying that the party cannot betray the people. On the road of Song-un in the teeth of sacrifices, he defended socialism, the life of the people, and laid the strong foundations for the durable peace, prosperity of the country and for the happiness of the people. A publication of South Korea commented this. Till the 1990s, the US used to cook and swallowed the continents and countries that did not obey its demand. The situation, however, changed fundamentally. The US felt unease in swallowing other countries. That is because the US got a thorn deep in its throat. The thorn is the flag of anti-imperialism and anti-us, and the red flag of socialism fluttering in the northern part of the Korean peninsula. The US immediately started the operation to remove the thorn, but in vain. The more it tried to pull it out, the deeper into the heart the thorn stuck in. This phenomena occurred not accidentally, but because North Korea placed to the fore the line of the Song-un politics against the US military threats. 30. North Korea keeps the Song-un politics that gives priority to the strengthening of the military power as the main mode of politics in all state policies. With the Song-un politics as the banner, North Korea set the People's Army as the main force and developed the sophisticated weapons such as nuclear and missiles. Enthusiastic Clinton, veteran Bush, and even sly Obama attempted war targeting this red flag for over 2 decades, but their numerous anti-North war plans were meaningless. That was because of the effect of the thorn, the effect of Song-un. Those countries that were in the side of the US began to doubt the power of the US, and people paid attention to the low cost but high efficiency of the thorn, through the process of the confrontation between North Korea and the US that had lasted for over 2 decades. Many countries, big or small, found the secret of victory against the tyranny of the US in North Korea's strategy of thorn, namely the Song-un line, and began to form again the anti-imperialist anti-us front. This was the same as the Korean Peninsula's small thorn, increasing its role as the central axis that moves the continents. This is the correct evaluation of the thoroughgoing. 31. Independent politics, the Song-un politics of Kim Jong-il, who defends the top interests of the country and lays the foundations of the national prosperity. The DPRK could be the only strong country in terms of politics and ideology, because the Workers' Party of Korea has followed the benevolent politics of the people are my God along with the independent politics. Comrades Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il took lovely care of the people, regarding them as God and putting their interests before others. The best love for the people is to equip them with the ideology of independence. The great leaders provided the people with the strong mental principle by equipping them with the Juche idea, the ideology of independence, and took fatherly care of them, in the fields of socio-political life, the material life and the cultural life. Their love turned the whole country into a big harmonious family with the leaders as their father, and enabled the people to be firmly united around the leaders on the basis of one ideology and moral obligation. History remembers some political leaders who created and materialized the political idea for the people. However, they did not enjoy the absolute support of 32. The people, because they did not devote themselves for the realization of their demand for independence, regarding them as God. George Washington was called as the father of the nation but lost the support because of his wrong policy, and Abraham Lincoln as hero, being sympathized by the limited black slaves, but eventually lost even their support. Mahatma Gandhi, who was regarded as the father, great soul, had been supported by the National Congress but failed to unite the Muslims and the Hindus. With the great leaders who have devoted their whole life for the country's prosperity and the people's happiness, regarding these as the goal and worth of life, the single-hearted unity, the cream of the combination of the leader and the masses was well set up in the DPRK. If the leader is great, a small country can be the ideological and political giant. The DPRK is the ideological giant where the entire people are armed with the ideology of independence, the Juche idea, and firmly united around the party and the leader on the basis of one ideology. The Korean people live and work as required by the Juche idea, with the awareness that the Juche idea is the great ideology that adds glory to the dignity and value of social being and illuminates the way of shaping their 33. Destiny and the national prosperity. Their ideology and mental strength are reflected in their slogans: let us meet the requirements of Juche in ideology, technology, and culture, and let us live our own way. It is the Korean people's life demand, honor, and conscience to defend a leader who devotes himself with the love for the people and to implement the initiatives and intentions of the party and the leader at all costs. The innovative successes gained in all fields of social development by the Korean people in the period from the period of arduous march and the forced march to the present tell the kinship relations between the leader and the people linked on the road of revolution. A girl manager of a local industrial factory in the northern part of the DPRK looked after tens of orphans for the country, while modernizing the factory and normalizing the production. What gave her such a wonderful personality? That was her loyalty to the leader. She wanted to give only pleasure to the leader, removing the burden of the leader who worried about the orphans in the period of the arduous march. Such people who are loyal to the leader and the country are found everywhere in the DPRK. There are families that look after tens of or even more than 100. 34. Orphans. There are many people who volunteer to work in the field of arduous labor such as farms, mines, etc., leaving their native places, with a view to contributing to the prosperity of the country. There are people who devoted their lives to save their comrades at the dangerous moments. These peoples were trained by the Workers' Party of Korea that established the people-centered socialism, imbued them with the ideology of independence, leading them to the worthwhile life. Their ideology and mental strength tell the true look of Juche-oriented ideological giant where the entire people keep pace with the leader, sharing bitters and sweets with him. The world of the great love created the admiring loyalty and made the dream of building a political and ideological giant that has remained as mere dream in many other countries come true in the DPRK. There are economic giants, military giants, and the countries with big population and territory, but the DPRK is the only strong political and ideological giant. The political and ideological giant has the bright future, though facing temporary trials, but the ideologically sick countries have no future, though having big wealth. 35. The capitalist countries where the social life is made according to individualism and the law of jungle can never be political and ideological giant. 2. Military giant. To make a country strong, the military power should be built along with the political and ideological power. Without the strong military power, it is impossible to successfully build a thriving country, to say nothing of defending the national sovereignty and socialism. Wars have taken place continuously in the world since the emergence of the imperialism whose nature is aggression and pillage. Except for the World War I and II, numerous local wars and battles took place in the 20th century. In 1995 only, over 50 battles took place in different countries, regions, and groups. In the history full of wars caused by the confrontation between the progressive and the reactionary and between the independent forces and the dominating forces, many countries have spent huge amount of expenditure and resources to strengthen their military power, due to the geopolitical and historical characteristics. 36. The DPRK badly needed the necessity of strengthening the military power more than any other countries. Geopolitically surrounded by the big powers, Korea had suffered from foreign intervention and invasion. During 500-year rule of the corrupted Korean feudal government, the national power was weakened, thus Korea eventually becoming the colony of the Japanese imperialists in the modern times. In 1905, the Japanese imperialists had 12 modern 6000-ton class warships and 200,000 strong army equipped with modern armed equipment like guns and machine guns. On the contrary, Korea was unable to produce even a rifle and had only 9,000 strong army. Korea that was liberated by great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung, who wisely led the anti-Japanese Revolutionary War to victory, was divided into the North and the South by the US imperialists. 5 years after its liberation and 2 years after the founding of the DPRK, Korea was involved in the 3-year war started by the US imperialists. The DPRK has been in confrontation with the US, the chieftain of imperialism, which occupied South Korea for over half a century. The truth discovered by the DPRK in the confrontation with the imperialism is that the national 37. Sovereignty, peace, prosperity, and development rest on the strong force of arm of the People's Army. Iron-willed brilliant commander Kim Il-sung, who defeated 2 strong enemies, the Japanese and the US imperialists, in 1 generation, created the idea of giving importance to force of arms, the military affairs, and cemented the country's self-defensive power through the Sangun revolutionary leadership. Inheriting this idea, great comrade Kim Jong-il placed the DPRK in the position of invincible military giant of socialism, setting forth the Sangun politics as required by a new historic age in which the overall confrontation with the imperialist allied forces is ever intensifying. Great leader comrade Kim Jong-il said, "Our People's Army has grown up to be invincible revolutionary armed forces, and our socialist motherland has emerged as a military power in the international arena. The military giant of socialism is the country where the army is prepared to be politically, ideologically, militarily, and technically superior. Invincible revolutionary army, the entire people are under the arms, the whole country becomes fortress, and the country which has self-defensive and modern defense industry." 38. The DPRK is an invincible country that has all above-mentioned qualifications. The DPRK is the military giant with the strong invincible revolutionary army. A country's military power consists of 2 elements: the soldiers and the armament, among which the former comes first. The army men, not the weapons or combat equipment, decide victory or setback of the battle, and the combat capability of the army hinges on its political and ideological preparedness. Regarding the ideological and political traits as the first traits of the Revolutionary Army, President Kim Il-sung has always paid deep attention to the ideological work to prepare the army men to be politically and ideologically strong, since the inception of founding the army. The army men were trained to be equipped with the revolutionary spirit of the anti-Japanese revolutionary fighters who fought with guerrilla warfare against 1,000,000 strong Kwantung army armed to the teeth in all difficulties on Mt. Paichu without the state support and the solid rear, under the leadership of great leader comrade Kim Il-sung. Along with this, the army men were educated to possess the preparedness to fight. 39. Against the imperialists to the last, with the warm love for the people and the uncompromising fighting spirit against all sorts of class enemies. The 3-year Korean War ignited by the US imperialists in 1950 was a great war in which the Korean People's Army with political and ideological superiority defeated the US imperialists with 100-year war history, military and technical superiority, and their 15 satellite state armies, Japanese imperialists, and South Korean puppet army. The U.S. Army generals admitted their defeat. Bradley, the former chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, said that, to be frank, the Korean War was a great military disaster and the wrong war at the wrong place, at the wrong time and with the wrong enemy. Taft, the former U.S. general, said that it is very clear that the U.S. was defeated in Korea and that there is no army in the world strong enough to defeat the Korean People's Army. The political and ideological power of the Korean People's Army is further strengthened now by the Sangun politics of the Workers' Party of Korea that gives priority to the strengthening of the People's Army, regarding the military affair as the top state affair, with the firm decision of safeguarding the country. 40. And the ardent patriotic will, great comrade Kim Jong-il inspected over 490 units of military sector from the mid-1990s to 2011, the last year of his life. In these days, he sometimes traveled 400 kilometers a day through snowstorms to inspect the units in the Eastern Front, and sometimes visited a small islet in wild sea weather at the risk of his life. He continuously visited the People's Army units even on holidays, saying that he would visit anywhere where there are soldiers. Visiting the units, he looked round the education rooms, the dining halls, the bathrooms, and the stores, looking after the soldiers' life with fatherly love. He sent full sets of karaoke and entertainment facilities, musical instruments, and sports facilities for their cultural life, and saw to it that TV informs of the news of the soldiers' native places. And he spent valuable time to enjoy humble art performance of the soldiers and had souvenir photo taken with the officers and soldiers as they desired. He was benevolent enough to wait for the soldiers on duty for photo session, thinking they would be sorry to miss the chance of photo taking, and to send medical face cream to the coastal artillery woman soldiers, worrying their face skins would be spoiled by sea wind. 41. In the care of the Sangun brilliant commander, the Korean People's Army soldiers could possess noble political and ideological traits of regarding it as the top life and soul to devotedly defend the headquarters of the revolution, of implementing the order of the Supreme Commander with heroic spirit of sacrifice, and of having the revolutionary discipline and the love for the country and the people. This political and ideological power of the Korean People's Army was surprisingly demonstrated in the sea battles in the West Sea of Korea in 1999 and onward, and in shelling against Yeonpyeong Islet in 2010. Dmitry Yazov, the former Soviet defense minister, wrote an article, Supreme Commander Kim Jong-il and the Invincible Army. The imbuing of the Korean People's Army with one ideology and the spirit of loving the soldiers united the whole army on the basis of one ideology, ranging from the Supreme Commander to a soldier. And this strengthens the military power 100, 1,000 times. With the awareness that they are the soldiers with arms, the People's Army soldiers have the common conviction to safeguard their leader, their party, and their socialism. This is well known in their slogan, "Let us become human bullets and bombs guarding the respected." 42. Supreme Commander. The generals, officers, non-commissioned officers, and soldiers respect and follow the Supreme Commander as their father and teacher rather than top head they have to simply obey. In the Korean People's Army, the order of the Supreme Commander is on the basis of love and trust rather than the exercise of power, and it is based on the respect and moral obligation rather than obeying mission. This is the special military traits available only in the Korean People's Army. The political, ideological, military, and technical status of the Korean People's Army soldiers who prepare themselves to be a match for 100 soldiers, the victors, with the absolute trust in their ever-victorious great military leader, reached the highest level. I saw this with my own eyes. The DPRK has also paid attention to the strengthening of the military and technical power of the Korean People's Army, along with the political and ideological power. As a result, the Korean People's Army has become the powerful elite revolutionary army that has not only the sophisticated, highly effective weapons and technical combat equipment but the invincible Kim Il-sung's end. 43. Kim Jong-il's tactics, mode of brave offensive and perfect actual war capacity gained through MT Paiksha type training. The DPRK is the military giant where the entire people are under arms and the whole country becomes fortress. In the DPRK, the entire people are armed with the invincible military tactics and technique of great Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il and organized to be a military force with the People's Army as core. The whole country has become an impregnable defense fortress. With the result of having developed the independent and modern defense industry, the DPRK has become the military giant that has modern offensive and defensive means and the strong war deterrent. The DPRK succeeded in launching the satellite on 3 occasions with her own efforts and technology, thus becoming manufacturer and launcher of the satellite. Rocket produces the power of diplomacy in proportion to its firing range and function. This becomes the action principle of the international politics at present. At this juncture, the DPRK succeeded in the launching the fully domestic-made satellite, her political and diplomatic prestige became high and her military power strong. The level of the development of defense industry of 44. The DPRK that produces modern offensive and defensive weapons and even interceptor complex available in a few countries was demonstrated in the military parades held on the occasion of the 65th anniversary of the founding of the Workers' Party of Korea in 2010 and on the occasion of the 100th birthday of great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung in 2012. A century ago the Korean nation was a small and weak nation that was deprived of its country by the Japanese and begged the big powers to help restore the sovereignty of the country in the International Peace Conference. It was the nation that talked of self-cultivation and build-up of strength or tried to compensate the national debt or expected the national independence through demonstrations or spontaneous movements of independence army. Great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung united the people of this small and weak nation for the anti-Japanese war to liberate the country and defended the nation from the imperialist aggression. Immediately after the liberation from the Japanese colonialism, he established the armament industry and paid attention to the strengthening of the defense. Even after the Fatherland Liberation War, the U.S. imperialists stationed in South Korea, ceaselessly making 45 anti-DPRK campaigns, and the revisionists followed the capitulationist line and the imperialists intensified their arbitrariness. Well versed in this situation, Kim Il-sung set forth the line of simultaneously developing the economy and defense. He set forth the original self-defensive military line of turning the whole army into cadre army, modernizing the whole of army, turning the whole country into an impregnable fortress and arming the entire people, and made every effort to build a strong self-defensive military power. On this basis, great comrade Kim Jong-il consummated national historic cause of placing the country in the position of a military giant through the Song-un politics. The DPRK, a small country in the east, has been under the persistent sanctions and blockades of the Allied imperialist forces, but she became a military giant. A foreign publication wrote, in evaluating Stalin, Churchill, the former Prime Minister of UK, said that Stalin was handed over backward Russia that did farming with hose and armed it with the atom bombs and handed it over to the next generation. Kim Jong-il, the chairman of the National Defense 46 Commission placed the DPRK in that position, thus being famous as the world leader. Russian newspaper Patriot wrote, for decades, the US and its following forces have resorted to the moves of sanction, blockades, isolation and suffocation, but they may feel painful to recognize the reality of the DPRK that became strong enough to be an outer space country, instead of being weakened. A Jordanian newspaper wrote, on the occasion of launching the satellite in the DPRK, the Western world was mad, losing its reason. That is because the DPRK successfully launched the satellite with her own efforts, without depending on the Western technology. When the DPRK strengthened the military power for peace and safety of the country and the region, the US imperialists made the UN Security Council adopt the sanction resolution, which was followed by more intensive one, and the South Korean puppets were running wild for the DPRK targeted war exercises in ally with the foreign forces, trumpeting the removing of the DPRK's nuclear threat. The US imperialists who forgot the lesson of setback in the Fatherland Liberation War in the 1950s and who got drunk with small success in the wars against the weak countries must not misjudge the strong gut and 47 will and the strong military power of the DPRK that does not make an empty talk. Military and technical superiority is no more the monopoly of the imperialists, and the time to threaten other countries by them with nuclear has gone forever. The South Korean puppets that are backed by the US imperialists who are keen in robbing others' wealth with nuclear, must know through the voice of the public that they are considerably benefited by the military power prepared by the DPRK, the same compatriots. Mal, the South Korean magazine number 6 issued in 2003 wrote, in case of nuclear war breaking out in the Korean peninsula, the total amount of loss will be about $21,024,040,000,000, and in case of peace being ensured, the South Korean people will be benefited worthy of tens of trillions of USD. The DPRK, in the future, too, will cement its military power under the banner of Song-un to build the new world free from domination and imperialism for the country's safety and the region's durable peace. 3. Economic giant and civilized nation. Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il said that under the condition that our political and ideological position 48. And the military power are firmly cemented, it is possible to successfully consummate the cause of building a thriving country, if the economic problem is solved. The Juche-oriented socialist thriving country is the country that has features befitting not only political and ideological giant and militant giant but economic giant and civilized nation. While consolidating the position of political and ideological giant and military giant, the DPRK is marching forward to build the country into the economic giant and the civilized nation. What, then, is the criterion of such a country and what kind of successes are made by the Korean people? The Korean people are now making efforts to build an economic giant of socialism. The economic giant is the reliable guarantee for the independent politics and self-defensive military power and an important condition for the people to have conviction in victory of socialism by providing them with happy life. The DPRK accelerates the building of the economic giant to place it in the position of giant with the overall national power, while consolidating its position of the political and ideological giant and the military giant. Many outsiders argue about the criteria of the 49. Economic giant with the existing idea. They ask by when will the DPRK rank in the advanced countries in terms of GNP? Which country's model will she take in the production index? The DPRK that regards the increase of the people's welfare as the basic goal of the building and development of the economy has the criterion of building an economic giant, centering on the people. It is the country that fully provides the people, the masters of society with bountiful and rich material and cultural life and that guarantees the independent politics and self-defensive military power materially and economically with the developed economic power. The economy of a strong socialist country must be self-sufficient, modern, and on the basis of information. Economy is the material basis of social life and it develops with the state as a unit. In order to make a sustainable and solid development of the economy and to place the economic power in the position of a giant, the economy must be independent. The independent national economy serves the people and stands on its own footing. The independent economy has the diversified economic structure that can produce the products of heavy and light industries and agricultural products. 50. Mainly by itself that are necessary for the building of a thriving country and the people's life. And it is comprehensively equipped with all production processes from the production of raw materials to the production of the finished goods. And it develops by the national cadres on the basis of its own technology, raw materials, and fuel. Along with independence of the economy, the modernization and information of the economy are one of the main criteria of the economic giant. The modern economy based on information equips all sectors with the latest modern technology, and its production and management is based on the modern science and technology. The modernization and information of the economy is important requirement for the rapid development of the economy, for ensuring the practical utility and for satisfying states and people's need. The strong socialist country is the country with the economy that guarantees the rich material and cultural life for the people and the country where the people live without envy with their enhancing life demands satisfied. The ultimate goal of placing the economy on the basis of modernization and information, while strengthening the independence of the national economy in socialist state is to provide the people with 51. Independent and creative material and cultural life conditions, and the success of the economic construction must be expressed in the people's living standard. The DPRK has given the main stress on putting the economy on an independent and Juche-oriented basis. In this process, she has the multi-sided and comprehensive structure that enables the economy to develop by herself and serve the people. She can produce raw materials and fuel locally, largely decreasing the degree of importing them. It scored big success in establishing the system of producing iron, fertilizer, fabrics, and fireproof materials badly needed for the economic development, with the raw materials and fuel bountiful in the country. Being proud of these successes gained by applying the Juche idea, the DPRK calls them Juche iron, Juche fertilizer, Juche vanillin and Juche fireproof materials. The DPRK accelerates the economic modernization and information, according to the world trend in which science and technology rapidly develop and science becomes closely combined with production. While paying attention to the sectors of metal, electricity, coal, and railway transportation, the key sectors of the national economy, she considerably improves the level of modernization of the overall economy. 52. In this process, the science and technology on cutting edge were developed and introduced, and the economy changed its look into knowledge-based economy. UHP electric arc furnace, the top technology in the knowledge-based economy, was built. Fertilizer began to be produced through gasification of coal, and AC electric locomotives are produced. In particular, she is breaking through the cutting edge in CNC technology in the machine building industry, the pillar of the modern industry. The DPRK breaks through the cutting edge, making the industrial revolution in the new century on the basis of the successes gained in CNC technology through producing the CNC mother machine tools and establishing the production process computerized combined system. She reconstructed many factories in a modern way and built new factories that are operated on the basis of the science and technology of the cutting edge. With the development of her economy, the traces of arduousness have been removed and the people's living standard is being improved. The issue of the people's life is the issue of food, clothes, and housing. Since long time ago, the Korean people have had the 53. Desire of eating boiled rice and meat soup, wearing silk dress and living in tile-roofed house. To satisfy this desire, the DPRK gives the main thrust of building an economic giant to the light industry and agriculture that directly serve the people's life. Along with this, she increases the state investment to the building of dwelling houses for the people. The Korean people's desire to live in palace-like tile-roofed house was satisfied by living in the socialist fairy cities and villages built in the care of the party and the state in the era of the Workers' Party of Korea, the era of Song-un. In fact, the housing problem, the biggest problem in many countries, is satisfactorily solved in the DPRK. Of course, her people have not yet led unenviable rich material life, and light industry and agriculture must be further developed for the improvement of the people's living standard. Due to over 4-decade-long vicious military occupation of the Japanese imperialists in the last century, her economy became one-sided and deformed and was totally destroyed by the war started by the US imperialists. The DPRK has developed its industry in a short span of time, amidst ever-intensifying sanctions of the Allied imperialist forces. 54. The US fostered up about 40 acts against the DPRK since the 1950s, such as Act of Export Control, the Act of Trade with Enemy State, the Act of External Aid, the Wassenaar Arrangement, and the Act of International Financial Structure. By these acts, all economic sectors of the DPRK are under sanctions, and she has been prohibited to make trade, financial transactions, and the exchange of science and technology. The US imperialists and the Allied forces prohibited or limited the transactions of the materials necessary for the people's life, to say nothing of the major factory equipment and sophisticated technology, under the pretext of dual uses. They checked the overall development of the DPRK's economy, adopting the sanction resolution of the UN Security Council in 2006, 2009, 2012 and 2013 against her exercise of independent rights such as the launch of satellites. It is admiring that the DPRK has scored successes in the building of economy under this arduous conditions. The more the imperialists intensify sanctions, the more the Korean people will be prepared, enhancing the level of independence, modernization, and information of the economy. 55. Adhering to the socialist principle, the principle of giving priority to military affairs and self-reliance, the Korean people follow the line of simultaneously carrying on the construction of the economy and the upbuilding of the nuclear forces, while giving precedence to development of the defense industry and the line of giving importance to science and technology. If she builds the strong economic power by accelerating the development of the economy, the DPRK will have full-fledged look of a thriving socialist country, and the people will lead worthwhile political life, sound ideological and cultural life, and rich and civilized material life. Now, we explain about the civilized nation of socialism. The civilized nation of socialism the DPRK is building is the strong advanced country where the people's cultural life is in the highest level. Culture consists of science, education, art, and literature, sports, public health, etc. In this sense, the civilized nation of socialism will have high level of science, technology, education, art, and literature, sports and public health. Since the inception of building a new society, the DPRK issued and materialized the line of building advanced and popular socialist culture, scoring proud 56 successes in its building. Her science and technology and education reached the level of civilized nation of socialism. We are in the era of science and technology and IT in which science and technology play considerably big role in social development and social life. In the economic sector only, at the beginning of the 20th century, the raw material, labor, and fund took large part in the economic growth, but in the 1970s science and technology accounted for 75% and the raw materials, labor, and fund for 25%, and after the 1990s the production growth is made mainly by the development of science and technology. As required by the era, the DPRK issued the line of giving importance to science and technology and paid attention to it, scoring wonderful successes. In the sectors of metallurgical industry and machine building industry, she developed cutting-edge technologies successively. In the biological sector, she developed the technologies of interpreting genes, life information, clone, transfer of gene by genome, differentiating organism on the basis of gene interpretation, developed Verdin, new organic agricultural medicine free from poison and pollution. She scored high level of scientific and technological 57 successes such as the establishment of the production process of nano-antibiosis fabric, scanning tunneling microscope, the production of anti-cancer medicine depending on Korean traditional medicine, etc. As mentioned before, the DPRK succeeded in launching the satellites on 3 occasions. The present sophisticated science and technology have 12 fields in 6 scopes such as organic medical apparatus industry, biological engineering industry, intellectual machine industry, software industry, superconductivity industry, solar energy industry, space industry, marine industry, etc. This tells the high level of the science and technology in the DPRK. These successes are inconceivable, apart from the development of the advanced and popular education. The DPRK is the only country where the entire Korean people study free of charge throughout their life from young age under the care of the party and the state. In the difficult days even before the laying of the economic foundation, the DPRK began the popular policy and now has the advanced popular education system, the universal 12-year free education system and higher education system through the regular universities and colleges and the study while working system. Through the compulsory senior middle school. 58. Education system, the pupils possess the loyalty to the party and the leader, the ardent love for the country and the people and the spirit of serving them with devotion, socialist morality, thus growing into able people with the basic technological knowledge and sound physical strength. Thanks to the higher education system, the students in regular universities receive scholarship and the students in the study while working education system receive income from the state, learning the experts' knowledge for the social development. The party and the state that regard education as the far-reaching plan for the future of the country have paid deep attention to training huge army of able intellectuals. The Workers' Party of Korea issued the idea of breaking through the cutting edge in all fields, keeping their feet firmly planted on their land and looking out over the world. The DPRK updates the contents and methods of education so as to train the revolutionary personnel who practically support the party's idea of building a thriving country, while cementing the material and technological foundations of education. The DPRK is the exemplary education country, the civilized nation in view of the universal, popular, and sustainable education system with the scientific end. 59. Revolutionary contents and method of education. The DPRK is developing the art and literature, public health, and sports to become the civilized nation of socialism. The Korean art and literature has the socialist contents in national form. Its mission is to give the genuine idea and morality and the sound and rich cultural attainments that enable the people to live as true human beings in an independent way. The DPRK made an overall development of the art and literature such as poem, novel, opera, music, dance, fine art, drama, film, etc. This is well proved by the method of dancing notation, the famous 5 revolutionary operas, 5 revolutionary dramas and the Grand Gymnasium and Art Performance Arirang. Carrying the revolutionary contents that reflect the people's desire in the national form that conforms to the national feeling, the Korean art and literature enhances the working people's mental and moral quality and their cultural attainments and inspires them to the true life and the building of a thriving country. In terms of its mission, form, contents, the level of development and the value of ideological education, the Korean art and literature is excellent. The DPRK has enviable free medical care system. Regarding the essence of the socialist medicine as 60. The preventive medicine, the DPRK has paid attention to it, thus completely preventing the contagious diseases. She provides the people with the universal free medical care by building hospitals in all parts of the country. Thanks to the section doctor system, the medical doctors give regular medical checkup and preventive medical treatment to the citizens under their charge. She develops the medical science according to the world trend, builds a lot of specialized modern hospitals and improves the management of the hospitals and thus improves the quality of medical care to reach the level of the advanced countries. In this free medical care system, the average span of life of the people increased, without any worry about the medical treatment. Sports develops, beating the world. The Korean sportsmen took the excellent places in the items of football, taekwondo, judo, shooting, marathon, athletics, weightlifting, etc. in the international games like the World Championship and Olympic Games. And some athletes took the first place continuously 3 or 4 times. In the DPRK where the sports become part and parcel of the people's life, new hurricane of sports is sweeping over the country, creating the atmosphere of 61. Great upsurge and displaying national spirit. The athletes are full of zeal and patriotism to hoist the DPRK's flags, winning all the games, with the ideological, speed, technical campaigns to repay the care of the party and the state for the sports. This will result in big development in the near future in the DPRK. Civilized life environment is also important criterion of the civilized nation of socialism. In conformity with the desire of the people who want to live in a civilized environment as required by the new century, the DPRK makes the urban and rural areas and factories in a modern way and covers the country with trees and flowers through mass movements. As a result, the whole country turned into the people's paradise and the socialist fairyland in which the socialist production culture and life culture is fully established. If she accelerates the development of science and technology, education, art and literature, sports and public health while consolidating the already made successes, the DPRK will demonstrate her dignity as the enviable civilized nation. In the near future, the Korean people will build a civilized nation and lead a happy and dignified life. 63. 3. The way to building a thriving country. The DPRK has scored big successes but has to go more to achieve the big goal of building a thriving socialist country. In order to realize the people's centuries-old desire for an unenviable happy life, she needs not only clear-cut goal but the correct and straight way towards the goal. The shortcut to the building of a thriving socialist country is the Juche way, that is, the strengthening of the single-hearted unity and the invincible military might and the acceleration of the industrial revolution in the new century. The DPRK defends the country and the people against the aggressive moves of the imperialists by dint of the single-hearted unity and tries to build a thriving socialist country with it. The single-hearted unity in the DPRK is the unity of the leader, the party, the army, and the people based on one ideology, will and moral obligation. The might of the people is the might of the unity, and the most solid unity is the single-hearted unity of the leader, the party, and the masses with the leader's love for and trust. 64. In the army and the people as the fundamental source. According to the old military book, in case of a group of peasants being mobilized as soldiers, they can defeat the enemy, if united. The most powerful is the might of the single-hearted unity formed with the benevolent and wise leader as the only center and based on the Juche idea, the ideological foundation that illuminates the way to the true life and struggle, reflecting their demand for independence and interests. The army and the people who are united around the party and the leader on the basis of the noble revolutionary obligation and comradely love can display the strong mental strength, the motive force for the building of a thriving socialist country. The spirit of devotedly defending the leader who is the destiny and the future of the socialist country and people, the strong spirit of national self-respect to demonstrate the national dignity and might, the self-reliant and strenuous spirit of overcoming all difficulties by one's own efforts and the spirit of loving the future. This is the superior mental strength for the building of a thriving socialist country. The single-hearted unity is the fundamentals of the Korean Revolution and is the decisive factor for victory in the building of a thriving socialist country. 65. The history of the Korean Revolution is the proud history full of victories and miracles performed by the might of single-hearted unity. Historical victory of Korea's liberation was won by the ardent fighters who respected great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung as the son who led the anti-Japanese war in the van under the banner of independence, to liberate the country deprived by the Japanese imperialists. The Korean people won the Fatherland Liberation War by dint of the single-hearted unity in which the leader trusts and loves the people and the people absolutely trust and respect the leader. The Korean people rehabilitated in 3 years the totally destroyed country that the US imperialists claimed it is impossible to rise even in 100 years. They also fulfilled the socialist industrialization within 14 years, turning the country into the socialist state, independent in politics, self-sufficient in economy and self-reliant in defense. In the period of the arduous march and the forced march that took place amidst the anti-DPRK offensives of the Allied imperialist forces in the latter half of the 1990s, the single-hearted unity with great comrade Kim Jong-il as the center demonstrated its might again in the world. It is miracle that the DPRK remained as the 66. Defender of socialism, overcoming grave trials, and even that the Korean people built a strong springboard for the building of a thriving country under the wise leadership of Comrade Kim Jong-il. For a decade since 1995, the Korean people worked miracles, completing over 100,000 projects and scoring the unprecedented successes in all fields of social development. Comrade Kim Jong-il's love for and trust in the army and the people and the single-hearted unity of the army and the people who respect him with pure conscience and moral obligation demonstrated the more powerful might than atom bombs in the days of building a thriving country. The history of the Korean Revolution proves that the single-hearted unity is the powerful motive force and the invincible weapon for the building of a thriving socialist country. The Korean Revolution that started and won victory by dint of single-hearted unity is in a new historical stage of advancing towards final victory in the building of a thriving socialist country with respected Kim Jong-un as the center of unity. Final victory in the building of a thriving socialist country will be hastened by the solid unity that many countries wanted to have but failed, the single-hearted. 67. Unity inherited and consolidated by the Workers' Party of Korea through centuries. The path to the building of a thriving socialist country is to consolidate the invincible military power with single-hearted unity. It is needless to say to strengthen the military power for the existence and development of a state. This is well proved by the following facts. After the successful launch of the satellite Kwangmyongsong 3-2 on December 12, 2012, the U.S. fabricated the Resolution No. 2087 of the UN Security Council on January 22, 2013, randomly violating the independent sovereignty of the DPRK as before. In March and April, it mobilized the South Korean puppet army and its allied forces for joint military exercise Key Resolve and Foal Eagle, bringing in nuclear strategic bombers B-52, stealth strategic bombers B-2A and nuclear-loaded destroyer, overtly blackmailing the DPRK with nuclear. Again bringing in the U.S. Chemical Battalion No. 23 once withdrawn and conducting joint anti-submarine drill in May, the U.S. tried to ignite a nuclear war, deploying nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Nimitz and super-large nuclear-powered submarine. Only through strengthening the self-defensive military power, can the DPRK defend the national right. 68. To survival and socialism and build a thriving country as she wishes, destroying the ambition of the U.S. imperialists who try to annex the Korean peninsula militarily and make the Korean people its modern slaves. The invincible military power is the life and treasure of the nation, as long as the imperialism exists on the earth and the people desire for independent development and prosperity of the country. The Industrial Revolution in the new century is the shortcut to the building of a thriving socialist country where the national power is strong, everything prospers and the people live without envy. The Industrial Revolution in the new century in the DPRK is a great change in the economic field to turn the economy into the modern knowledge-based socialist economy. The intellectual ability of the people who ushered in the era of machine industry in the 20th century has rapidly developed, ushering in the new era of the knowledge-based economy in the 21st century. The era of the knowledge-based economy pushes ahead with the development of society and economy, depending on the production, circulation, and application of the knowledge and information. At present, science and technology, especially the 69. Information technology make rapid development, increasing their role considerably in social development and social life. With the comprehensive development of the science and the social sciences through their cross-infiltration, new scientific fields such as biochemistry, economic law, measuring economics, mathematical philosophy, etc. were created, trying to place the development of science in the major fields decisive for the national power on the latest level. With the increase of the computer processing speed by 10 billion times for 5 decades between 1950 and 2000, we can observe the micro-world as small as 1/1000th of 1 meter. Through Internet, we can see and hear the situation on the opposite of the Earth. The DPRK makes the Industrial Revolution in the new century, in order to overtake the world-level development of science and technology in a short span of time to stand in the van in the era of knowledge-based economy. In the period of the arduous march, the Workers' Party of Korea invested its valuable fund firstly for the machine-building industry, the key of the modern industry for the building of a thriving country, thus creating an example of knowledge-based industry. The latest CNC technology is pushing ahead with the Industrial 70. Revolution in the era of knowledge-based economy. On the basis of the experience of having taken the upper hand, the DPRK integrates the science and technology with production, knowledge with economy in all fields of the national economy, breaking through the cutting edge. The Industrial Revolution in the new century to turn the national economy into the knowledge-based one will bring about an epochal turn in the promotion of the people's life, putting the overall national power onto the level of a thriving country in a short span of time. The way to a thriving country, the way of cementing the single-hearted unity and strengthening the invincible military might and accelerating the Industrial Revolution in the new century is the invariable path of Juche started by the devoted efforts of the distinguished leaders who have the noble patriotic idea and will. 72. For Songhan era's terms. Human history knows different eras with different characteristics. There had been the Stone Age, the Bronze Age and the Iron Age that were divided by the development of labor tools, and the Slaveholder Age, the Feudal Age and the Capitalist Age that were divided according to the socio-class relations. In the latter half of the 20th century, Korea met a new era fundamentally different from these historical ages. The new era is the Songhan era, ushered in by the Songhan idea. By the Songhan idea, the thoroughgoing anti-imperialist idea and the idea of loving the country, nation, and people, a new Songhan era was ushered in, producing the era's terms that characterize the era. In this book, you will read only the terms related with the devoted efforts of great comrade Kim Jong-il, who planned to make Korea an economic giant and civilized nation dignified with Songhan as soon as possible. Through the Songhan era's terms unprecedented in history or unavailable in any dictionary, the readers can 73. Have better understanding of how the DPRK greeted the period of building a thriving country, overcoming all the difficulties. The readers will convince in that the DPRK will build a thriving country as she has the firm foundation provided by the devoted efforts of Comrade Kim Jong-il, the father of the nation. 1. Super-intensive forced march for on-the-spot guidance. It is difficult to imagine that one makes the intensive forced march continuously for hundreds or thousands of days, not for a day or a month. However, Comrade Kim Jong-il, the great leader of the Korean people, had super-intensive forced march for on-the-spot guidance continuously with ardent patriotic will. Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il said that he has worked, willingly complying with the difficulties, imagining the look of boundlessly prosperous socialist fatherland and of the people enjoying the more worthwhile and happy life in its care. General Kim Jong-il, who had huge plan of building a thriving country in 1999, appealed to the army and the 74. People that in the era of great Comrade Kim Il-sung, we ran on Ko Lima, and in a new Song-un era, we must rush on steed at a canter, and then after we achieved the immediate goals, we must rush forward faster like the wind. With the ardent enthusiasm, he continued his on-the-spot guidance, in order to achieve the huge goal of building a thriving country in a short span of time by considerably speeding up the advance. He visited all the factories and farms ranging from the industrial complexes in the key field of the national economy to the small local industrial factories. In this period, he led the factories and farms to place their production and management on the Juche-oriented, independent, and modern basis through socialist competition. He saw to it that fruit farms, livestock farms, fish breeding farms, service centers, and cultural life centers were newly built in every part of the country, cultivating the people's happiness, and showed the fatherly love to the people, visiting the houses of the ordinary workers and farmers. While visiting the central or local universities, middle schools, and science institutions, he taught the methods of developing the country's science and education as required by the developing era. Visiting the tree nurseries and forest management. 75. Institutions, he opened bright vista for the building of the socialist paradise full of trees and flowers. And he gave on-the-spot guidance to the field of art and literature so that the masterpieces representing the Song-un era could be created. He visited hundreds of units a year, traveling 40,000 km on the train in 2009 alone. His on-the-spot guidance was the super-intensive forced march, unprecedented in terms of the number of visiting places, the traveling distance, and the diversified width of guidance. His on-the-spot guidance was unimaginably super-intensive forced march in terms of speed. He inspected many units continuously in a day and traveled over 40 kilometers from the east coast to the west coast, from the capital to the northern part of the country a day to solve the problems arising in the building of a thriving country. His visit to every part of the country at a canter or faster to attain the high goal of building a thriving country was really super-intensive forced march. Among the era's terms that characterize his forced march, we can face the terms such as the forced march of over 1,000 ri, the forced march in the snowstorm, and the forced march in sultry season. 76. The forced march of over 1,000 ri. This expression tells a day's route of Kim Jong-il's on-the-spot guidance. When he visited Hungnam Fertilizer Complex in February 2009 to solve the food problem, he came to know that the production process was not finished because of the delay of the equipment necessary for the modernization of the complex. Saying that he had to personally give the task to well produce the ordered equipment, he went to Rock 1 Machine Complex, traveling over 1,000 ri at night in the February cold day. Upon his arrival, he looked at the bird's eye view of the equipment and asked the officials to produce the ordered equipment in time. He could have given the task through officials concerned or by telephone, but did not hesitate to travel such a long distance at deep night, as he longed for the day when the fertilizers and rice would fall like waterfalls. One day, he was returning to the capital city after his inspection but went back to the distant factory again, traveling 1,000 ri, as he felt sorry for not having met the factory officials and workers, and encouraged them to the success, with warm love and trust. The more difficulties and tasks his people had, the 77. More intensive his super-intensive forced march became. The forced march of over 1,000 Ri a day he made with patriotic conviction made Songhan Korea leap forward, being remembered by the army and the people as the legend of the new era. The forced march in the snowstorm and the forced march in sultry season. Regarding the improvement of the people's life as the top affair and the top goal, Comrade Kim Jong-il continued his on-the-spot guidance, regardless of the season or day and night to satisfy the desire of the people. On a winter day, he visited Kim Chik Iron and Steel Complex and continued his travel to Musan Mining Complex. Standing on Kolson Peak in a cold day of 20 degrees Celsius below zero, he appealed upon the miners to send more iron ores to the developing metallurgical bases. In January 2010, he visited the building site of Hwakan Hydropower Station in a cold day of 30 degrees Celsius below zero, for his first inspection in the new year. Traveling over 1,000 Ri through the snowstorm, the car windows were covered with frost and he could hardly move as his body was stiffened by the long forced march. Although he was too tired and uncomfortable, he got out of the car and sent a broad smile to the builders, being 78. Afraid that the soldiers and the people would worry about his health. His great devotion, noble idea, and boundless love encouraged the builders of Hwakan Hydropower Station, the outpost of the building of a thriving country, to the creation of new Kolyma Speed, the Hwakan Speed. He visited a lot of large-sized industrial bases, the construction sites of power stations and service centers for the people in snowstorm. In every place, he encouraged the officials, scientists, technicians, and the workers to display their mental strength for the building of a thriving country. The people asked General Kim Jong-il the destiny and the future of the country and the people not to travel in snowstorm, but he continued his forced march in the snowstorm even in 2011, the last year of his life. In cold January, he visited the bottle production factory and continued his travel to many factories, science research institutes, people's cultural service centers, etc. In cold December, he gave on-the-spot guidance without rest to many units including the Comprehensive Art Information Base and Commercial Center. His on-the-spot guidance continued even in sultry season. Since the olden time, Korea has the hottest summer. 79. Season that is divided into 3 periods. Korean proverb goes, in this hottest summer season, a grain of rice on the lip is felt heavy. In this hottest summer season, he visited many sectors of the national economy including the factories in the machine industry and light industry sectors, being wet with sweat. In hot July 2011, he visited the exhibition of commodities in Pyongyang Department Store No. 1 for a long time, asking to produce and supply more commodities the people like. Many heads of state have holidays at summer resorts in hot season, and the Korean people cool down their hot bodies in swimming pools or park in this hot season. However, he continued his forced march in the sultry days and rain-pouring days, in order to give the people the more prosperous future. Without caring for his sufferings for the sake of the people, he visited every part of the country. His spirit of the forced march enabled the army and the people to fully display their mental strength in the building of a thriving country, bringing about the heyday of Songhan Korea through his forced march. 80. 2. Field-style life. History does not know that any political leader or supreme military commander lived in the field at a normal time, not wartime. The field-style life not available in any great men expresses the patriotic devotion and enthusiasm of General Kim Jong-il, who made unremitting efforts for the safety and happiness of the people. The Korean Revolution was particularly arduous and difficult, as it set it as the goal to defend the red flag of socialism against the most vicious U.S. imperialism and to realize the people's ideal. He made the field-style life, overcoming the difficulties in the van under the slogan "Charge after me, not charge forward." He was always on the road of giving on-the-spot guidance to defend socialism, frustrating the unprecedented suffocation moves of the Allied imperialist forces in the latter half of the 1990s and to encourage the entire people to the building of a thriving socialist country in the 2000s. In his car or train traveling to give on-the-spot guidance, he used to have a short sleep and take 81. Humble bald rice. He could hardly sleep, though tired, thinking that if he took rest, the advance of the country would delay and that he was afraid of the time flying, as he had a lot of work to do for the sake of the people. Saying that the bald rice is good as it did not consume much labor to make it and it is easy to take it quickly anywhere without giving troubles to others, he liked it as the ideal meal on the way. When he was too busy with giving on-the-spot guidance, he used to skip even that humble rice. His field-style working and living traits did not change even in the days of his visit to foreign countries. On the running train, he had talks with the foreigners and studied the necessary documents, without sleep. During his visit to foreign countries, he shortened his lunchtime, trying to look at more objects and meet more people. As a human being, he felt tired and loved his family more than anyone else. However, valuing the soldiers and the people, he had devoted his all, sacrificing his entire personal affair. General Kim Jong-il, who had devoted his all day and night for the country's prosperity and the people's happiness, burning himself as a light candle, breathed his 82 last on a train. The terms of the Songun-era field-style life, unprecedented in history of the world politics, imprint his peerless greatness and awaken the people to the fact that the present and the future of Songun Korea is bright, thanks to his sacrificing devotion for the building of a thriving socialist country. 84. 5 People's increasing happiness. The fireworks soiree took place in a grand way in Pyongyang in April 2009, demonstrating the invincible spirit of the Korean people who met a turning point in the building of a thriving country. The various styles of fireworks cast the eyes of the people upon mysterious night sky. Looking at the test fire of the fireworks in February 2009, General Kim Jong-il said it was his determination to provide the Korean people with numerous happiness like the wonderful colors of the fireworks. The grandiose firework display in April 2009 told the wish of the motherly party to give numerous blessings to the people. The devoted efforts of the general, who regarded it as his lifelong ideal to make the people live better life without envy, could provide them with happy life as beautiful as the firework display. 1. Blessings with food, clothes, and housing. In general, blessing gives satisfaction and pleasure. 85. Since the olden time, people have wished to be blessed with food, clothes, and housing. Food, clothes, and housing are closely linked with man's survival, and apart from these blessings, his happiness and social development at large are inconceivable. The people's life with food, clothes, and housing, therefore, tells whether the politics is right or wrong. The Workers' Party of Korea, since its foundation, has improved this life, in a responsible way. The Korean people lead a happy life with food, clothes, and housing in the care of the Workers' Party of Korea that does not spare anything for the people, setting it as the top principle of its activities to improve the people's life. In the latter half of the 1990s, however, the Korean people had to make the arduous march, suffering from the shortage of food and others. It was an urgent requirement for building a thriving country to improve the people's life. Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il said that when the people's life is considerably improved, the voice of hurrah of socialism and the song of prosperity would echo over the country and the door of the thriving country be open. General Kim Jong-il set the light industry and 86. Agriculture as the main thrust for the building of a thriving country, to improve the living standard of the people who follow the party invariably even in difficulties. Amidst the fireless war against the Allied imperialist forces, he laid firm foundation for the improvement of the people's living. Thanks to the foundations he made through his continuous on-the-spot guidance, the DPRK scored successes in improving the people's living. The food problem is now being solved. In order to solve the food problem, it is necessary to increase the grain production, develop the livestock farming, fruit farming, and fishing industry. The DPRK solved the problems of land and water, the main conditions for the increase of the grain production, and issued a new policy of agricultural revolution. For 5 years since 1998, the Korean people administered land in Kangwon Province, South and North Gyeonggi Provinces, South and North Hwanghae provinces and in other cities, counties stage by stage, thus standardizing hundreds of thousands of land of the country. They also built over 10,000 km gravity-fed waterways at different stages, satisfactorily solving the water problems in the granary areas. Along with this, the party issued the new policy of agricultural revolution. 87. Such as seed revolution, potato farming, double crop farming, bean farming, etc., laying firm foundation for the increase of agricultural production. The DPRK opened vista for the increase of grain production by expanding the double crop farming areas, the accumulation of the experience of the triple farming in the mountainous areas, the establishment of the ring-type cyclic production, the enhancement of per hectare yield by the help of high-yield varieties and compound micro-organic fertilizers, etc. To solve the meat problem, the DPRK modernized the livestock bases once suspended in the period of the arduous march and built many pig farms, chicken farms, duck farms, and breeding stock farms that are managed on the basis of the latest science and technology in different parts of the country. She also built ox farms, ostrich farms, and soft-shelled turtle factories to provide the people with the diversified and high level of diet. Modern system was set up to breed on a large scale the sturgeons and trout in the sea, breaking through the cutting edge. The Comprehensive Fish Breeding Institute that integrates the study and the processing of fishes of higher quality such as salmon was built in the east coastal area. Fish breeding farms were built in mountainous and 88. Plain areas in all parts of the country, considerably increasing the production of the sweetwater fishes. Regarding that the validity of the party's policy must be proved in the people's diet, the Workers' Party of Korea laid agricultural and livestock foundations in the difficult days of defending socialism and thus provided the people with richer diet, hastening the day of their better life. T-Dagang Combined Fruit Farm and T-Dagang General Fruit Processing Factory, the large-sized exemplary bases were built and the fruit farms were modernized, intensified and specialized so that the people are supplied with different varieties of fruit irrespective of season, receiving the party's love. Following the example of Samilfo Specialties Factory, combined foodstuff factories were newly built in every province and cornstarch factories and foodstuff factories were modernized. Every year, national food cooking festivals take place in the capital city, provinces, and counties on a grand scale and the newly built restaurants help the improvement of the people's diet. The famous Pyongyang cold noodle, meat tray noodle, cooked soft-shell turtle, salmon, sturgeon, and quail and other foods are served in Delicacy House under 89. Okria Restaurant, telling the high level of their diet life. The DPRK scored successes in solving the problem of clothes, increasing the production of the necessaries of life and the articles of daily use. The old central and local textile mills, shoe factories, and daily necessities factories were modernized or newly built, preparing the strong potentiality to satisfy the increasing need. The suspended February 8 vanillin complex was rehabilitated, producing vanillin, the Juche fabric and other necessaries, bringing about a turning point in solving the problem of clothes. Along with the activating of the production of light industry goods, the commercial service centers were modernized or newly built, giving substantial benefits to the people. As the Workers' Party of Korea makes the popular policies, the independent economy has its strong foundations and the officials and workers in this sector have high enthusiasm, the people will lead a civilized life in the near future. The socialist ferry streets and villages were built in all parts of the country, removing the traces of arduousness and considerably improving the housing condition of the Korean people. 90. The DPRK provides the people with dwelling houses and apartments free of charge, satisfying their need for housing. These modern houses and apartments built in the urban and the rural areas as required by the increasing cultural demand in the new century give the look of the socialist fairyland. The apartments with the capacity of thousands of families built in Mansudae Street and Changjin Street, the symbols of the new century, were built in Pyongyang City in a short span of time and a large number of dwelling houses were newly built. In the rural areas, hundreds of ferry villages rise every year. Village at Pomanarai, Sohang County, North Hwanghae Province and village at Megakarai, Sariwon City have several rows of palace-like tile-roofed houses behind which are various kinds of fruit trees and in front of which are vast fields and neat fish breeding ponds. Such socialist fairy villages are springing up competitively in every part of the country. The simple workers, peasants, and intellectuals, not angels, are living in this paradise, the socialist fairy villages in the era of the Workers' Party of Korea. The DPRK is the only country that builds tens of 91 thousands of flats every year for the people. In the capitalist society known as the welfare society, the housing condition is getting worse and worse. In South Korea alone, over 8.06 million families among 14.31 million families live in rented houses. The Seoul citizens must accumulate their salaries of 23 or 27 years to buy houses. Due to this, numerous poor peoples live painful life in shanties with a 0.7 or 2 m2 wide room, paying 210,001 per month in average. The people in the DPRK have the enviable blessings with house. Her people's ideal for good food, clothes, and housing is materialized one by one. In December 2001, Great Comrade Kim Jong-il visited a machine factory on his way of giving continuous on-the-spot guidance for the building of a thriving socialist country. A young man at the age of about 20 thanked him for having sent chicken and eggs. The poultry factories built under his warm care and wise leadership well served the people. With a broad smile on his face, he replied that he has no other desire when the people are happy and he finds his happiness and pleasure in the people's happiness and pleasure, adding that he is inspired instead 92 of being tired even after working without sleep. Everybody can understand how the people's happiness and pleasure increased, but nobody knows how to thank this. 2. Full happiness is oncoming. Korean proverb goes, the more one has, the more one wants. This tells man's desire has no limit. Apart from the demand for food, clothes, and housing, people have demand for the dignity and prestige of country, society, and themselves and for their health and development. A country finds it difficult to satisfy all these demands. This is, however, not impossible at all. Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il said that the day of final victory is not far when our people live better life without envy in the world, when Korea takes the position of the socialist economic giant and the scientifically and technically advanced country following the position of the political and ideological giant and the military giant. The biggest blessing for the people is to be the masters of the country and the people of the thriving country. Without being the masters of the country, the people cannot satisfy the socio-political demand and material 93 and cultural demand for survival and development. The country and the people that are under the foreign domination and interference, failing to build a thriving country are no better than beasts. The Korean people already became the true masters of the state and society. They satisfied their socio-political demand that the people in many countries have desired but failed to realize. The Korean people became the people of the ideological giant, political giant and military giant. With the Juche idea, the idea of independence that illuminates the road of country's development and prosperity, the road of worthwhile life, adding glory to their dignity and value, the Korean people could have the blessings of saying the last farewell to the mental wandering. When the people in many countries were stumbling in mental poverty, and trusting their destiny on God, the Korean people advanced straightly with full conviction, shouldering their destiny upon themselves. In the history full of division, conflict, and fighting, the DPRK is proud of the great tradition of the single-hearted unity of the leader, the party, the army, and the people made on the basis of one ideology. With the great ideology and the great unity, she successfully satisfied the national desire for the 94 military giant which no enemy can dare to attack, overcoming all difficulties. The Korean people do not know the words like tax, school fee, and medical treatment fee, as they do not pay tax, learn free of charge throughout their life and get free medical care. Even at the time of food crisis, fuel crisis, and energy crisis, the universal compulsory free education continued across the country. The state paid more attention to the development of education, science, and technology. The Juche-oriented socialist preventive public health care satisfies the people's desire for longevity in good health. This is well proved by an example. A worker in a stone pit was fatally wounded because of the unexpected accident. Age, 26, diagnosis, serious cerebral contusion, cranium fracture, bronchial pneumonia. This fact was immediately reported to the party, which took emergent state measure. The patient, who was carried to the Central Special Hospital, miraculously regained consciousness in 15 days. When he was recovered, the hospital official showed him a sheet of paper which reads: 95. Emergent measures taken for the recovery of the patient, transportation means for the patient: a helicopter, a passenger plane and ambulance vehicles, the organizations involved for the treatment: Tangkon City People's Hospital, Pyongyang Medical College Hospital, KPA Air Force Unit, Korea Civil Aviation Bureau, the medical doctors for the treatment: over 10 academicians, professors and doctors, over 10 medical doctors and nurses, medicine used musk, 72 kinds of quality medication including broad antibiotics, blood transfused 5.7 liters, total treatment fee about $150. The measure of the DPRK for a patient is unimaginable, when compared with the total amount of $120 offered to South Korea by the US and Japan for the flood sufferers in 1984. The Korean people are the blessed people living in the country brimming over with love, trust, and moral obligation. Good politics makes people good, whereas evil. 96. Politics makes them evil. With the fundamental goal of the revolution as the love for the people, the Workers' Party of Korea makes the politics of love and trust, turning the whole country into a big harmonious family. In the big family, with the leader as their father, the Korean people share sweets and bitters, helping and leading each other forward. Many people look after orphans as their own children and the childless aged people as their own parents, and young people get married with the honored ex-service people and save their friends at the cost of their lives in the unexpected situation. This is normal phenomena. According to the Rodong Sinmun dated April 27, 2013, 2 young people in Kangryong Peninsula were drifted in the sea by storm, while catching shells in December 2012. After discovering the drifting boat, the Navy men of the KPA approached the boat but were pushed far away by the stormy wave. They jumped into the icy cold water and saved them with all difficulties. They covered them with their blankets and overcoats, giving the first aid, and then sent them to the military hospital. For 6 months, the doctors and nurses did their best, and at last they were recovered by the devoted efforts of 97. The doctors, nurses and Navy men. This is normal phenomena in the DPRK. The Korean people are happy people who enjoy rich cultural life. Juche-oriented art and literature is prospering, enhancing dignity and value of an independent man and satisfying the cultural need of the people. Thanks to the music policy of the Workers' Party of Korea, Korean music reached the high level of the revolutionary and optimistic music art. When the decadent songs lead the people to pathos and pessimism and even to suicide, the militant and optimistic Korean songs lead to courage, serving as the mental source. The Korean people enjoy themselves in the famous mountains and scenic places. MTS. Ryongak, Chilbo, Kwol, Jiangsu, Myohyang, and Jongbang were wonderfully turned into the people's cultural resorts, and the Central Zoo and the recreation places in Majeon, Socom, Songdaeun, Wado and Mt. Piken were modernized. New parks, recreation grounds, and wading pools were built in Pyongyang and rural areas, adding pleasure to the people. Ryongmun Cavern and Songam Cavern were well built, too. Ryongmun Cavern has 11 wonderful and famous 98 spots and large space and waterfalls which are unavailable in deep caverns in other countries. In these underground scenic places, the Korean people enjoy themselves. The Korean people enjoy ever-growing happiness and pleasure, with all their desires being fully satisfied one by one. This is not an accident given by God but necessity of history given by the motherly party. Mothers are not normally satisfied with the things done for the sake of their children, trying to give better and better things. Happiness is snowballing in the DPRK thanks to the Motherly Workers' Party of Korea. 106. The future of building a thriving country. The Korean people are now making the general advance for final victory in building a thriving country, frustrating the anti-DPRK moves of the imperialist allied forces. General Kim Jong-il set a huge goal for a thriving socialist country to make the people live happy life without envy. The DPRK has already attained the goal of building the political, ideological, and military giants and now has the immediate task to build the economic giant and the civilized nation. Respected comrade Kim Jong-un is now leading the cause of building a thriving socialist country towards final victory, while consolidating the already gained successes. The Korean people are optimistic of the future of the thriving socialist country, the ideal society of humanity, that is being built under the wise leadership of respected Kim Jong-un. People say that they foresee the future in history. By traversing the road of independence, the road of Song-un and the road of socialism successively under the 101 leadership of the predecessor leaders, the Korean people have scored in a short span of time the success that took several centuries in other countries. The idea and ability of a political leader are confirmed by his idea, theory, and practice. Respected Kim Jong-un wrote over 10 works in a short span of over 1 year. In his works, he made historic contribution, by formulating the revolutionary idea of the Workers' Party of Korea into Kim Il-sungism Kim Jong-ilism and clarified it as the supreme program of the party to model the whole society on Kim Il-sungism Kim Jong-ilism. He also clarified the concrete tasks and ways of building a thriving country, true to the idea of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, holding them in high esteem as eternal leaders, and does everything according to their intentions. The future of the building of a thriving socialist country is bright, as long as respected Kim Jong-un with the extraordinary ideological and theoretical wisdom, inherits the idea and cause of the predecessor leaders as they are and leads the people to the road of independence, the road of Song-un and the road of socialism. His political ability and traits confirm final victory of building a thriving country in the DPRK. In a short span of his revolutionary leadership, he 102 demonstrated his incomparably high political ability. South Korean internet website Minjirokong carried an article that reads, Kim Jong-un, the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission of the Workers' Party of Korea became famous at a jump, as soon as he appeared as the official successor. CNN of the U.S. selected General Kim Jong-un in North Korea as 20 candidates of the top 10 interest persons of 2010 who will be recently voted through internet all over the world and selected him as the top 10 interest persons of the world on December 28. After officially electing respected Kim Jong-un the successor, North Korea regained more energy and created events successively that surprised the world. North Korea gave great shock to the world by disclosing the facilities of enriching uranium and shelling on Yeonpyeong Islet, while scoring a lot of noteworthy successes in the building of the economy. These great events are no more than some of the successes gained at once, after Vice Chairman Kim Jong-un was elected the successor. Through fully disclosing the uranium enriching facilities, North Korea dealt a fatal blow to the U.S. that 103 insisted on the strategy of pressurizing North Korea. This technically and practically proved that North Korea manufactured and possessed various kinds of the highly effective nuclear weapons including the uranium nuclear weapons to cope with the US and thus demonstrated that the US can never defeat North Korea forever. And North Korea demonstrated that it can build and operate the modern nuclear reactor including the light water reactor by itself and thus made the world recognize the failure of the economic sanction of the US that tried to economically isolate North Korea with delaying tactics. Meanwhile, North Korea redoubled the conviction in overcoming the economic difficulties through self-reliance and achieving victory in the building of a thriving country. With these politically calculated measures, North Korea dealt a heavy blow to the US that resorted only to the anti-North confrontation, denying dialogues, and brought the US to the inescapable negotiation table as she aimed and demanded, thus decisively breaking the wrong policy of the US towards North Korea. North Korea changed the understanding and view of the US and the rest of the world about her. The world that doubted whether North Korea would kneel down before the US, being affected by the distorted 104 propaganda of the ultra-right conservative forces, became to know that North Korea's economic withering is a sheer lie, looking at the developing reality of North Korea. Looking at the continuously developing reality overtaking the world level in all sectors of North Korea, the world came to recognize that the building of a thriving country is materialized in North Korea. The North Korea's strong measure against anti-North aggressive war exercises of the US and South Korea that aggravate tension in the Korean peninsula, and North Korea's afterward flexible measure taught the world that the DPRK is victor and defender of peace in the Korean peninsula and the world. Coping with the shelling of South Korea, North Korea gave precision strike only to the military headquarters and facilities, thus demonstrating her will of merciless retaliation and sufficient ability. At the time of the second provocative shelling from Yeonpyeong Islet, North Korea controlled her military countermeasure beyond expectation and thus controlled the shelling of the US and South Korea without firing a shell, becoming the defender of peace of the Korean peninsula in a moment. In the confrontation over the issue of Yeonpyeong Islet, North Korea won victory militarily and politically. 105. And put the US and South Korea on the position of defendant as the direct destroyer of peace in the Korean peninsula and the world. With the highest level of military measure and political diplomacy, North Korea changed the political structure around the Korean peninsula at once, enjoying the support and sympathy of the world. In a short span of 3 months after setup of the official system of the successor, the world came to know the first ability of North Korea's successor who strengthens the political system and develops the defense industry and economic construction, handling the US as he likes and could expect the future of Kim Jong-un's era. With the wide range of knowledge, world-level vision, extraordinary wisdom and decision and the strong gut, respected Kim Jong-un leads the affairs in all fields like politics, diplomacy, military, economy and culture in a three-dimensional way, creating surprising successes, as recognized by the world. Comrade Kim Jong-un, another Song-un commander of the Korean people, considerably strengthens the Korean People's Army politically and technically, invariably holding the banner of Song-un. Saying that the Supreme Commander is necessary for the soldiers, he visits front-line outposts including 106. Panmunjom, Mu Islet and Jangji Islet and other Korean People's Army units and has photo session with the soldiers arm in arm and shoulder to shoulder, looking after their life. In the care of the Supreme Commander who calls the soldiers his comrades in arms, giving love and trust to them, the Korean People's Army soldiers are being prepared to be ideological and organizational integral whole that fights at the cost of their lives for the party, the leader, the country, and the people. He teaches the concrete ways for combat preparation and victory, visiting the Korean People's Army units. And he personally guides combined exercise of the Korean People's Army, the Joint Strike Drill and other combat drills, preparing the Korean People's Army to be strong army. He led the successful launch of satellite Kwangmyongsong 3-2 to demonstrate the national dignity, adding glory to the exploits of the great generalissimos for building army and demonstrated the prestige of Kim Il-sung's nation and Kim Jong-il's Korea. Giving on-the-spot guidance to the munitions industry, he took measure to modernize the military production and make the working class display their mentality, bringing about a new heyday of the 107. Development of the defense industry. Coping with the overt U.S. nuclear threat, he controls the enemy with continuous and overall offensives, demonstrating the strong will, wise and bold operational strike capability of the DPRK that is not afraid of the overall nuclear war. Creating favorable conditions for building a thriving country with the able political and military measure, taking upper hand in the confrontation with the U.S. imperialists, he leads the people to the building of an economic giant, scoring noteworthy successes. With the strong decision to make the Korean people enjoy all the benefits of socialism without tightening their belts anymore, he makes every effort, calling them the best people, and changes the look of the DPRK considerably. For over 1 year, a lot of factories based on the latest technology, Pyongyang Folk Park, Rungna People's Pleasure Ground, Rungna Dolphinarium, the People's Open Air Ice Rink, Thongal Fitness Center, the People's Theater, Mansukyo Meat and Fish Shop, Podhonggang Fish Shop, Hidangaway Service Center, Ryagayong Health Complex, Pyongyang International Football School, etc. were completed in Pyongyang, and over 10 parks were built in every district of Pyongyang City. And cultural service centers were erected in every part of the country, displaying the spirit of breaking through the cutting. 108. Edge. The scientists scored successes in the basic technical fields such as nanotechnology, information technology, and biological engineering technology. With the appearance of fresh and militant Moranbong Band, a new phase was developed in art and music, and learning. After it, the hurricane of creation sweeps over the country. Planting new variety of turf and trees, the whole country is covered with dense forest, changing the look of the urban and rural areas. His boundless devotion for the country and the people, boundless simplicity, benevolent popular traits consolidated the single-hearted unity of the society on a higher stage. He regards the people's interests as the top, sincerely loves them, open-mindedly treats them, and attracts their mind. In the days of big national loss of the demise of Kim Jong-il, the father of the nation, he took care of the people lest they should shiver from cold, took measures to supply the citizens with fish, and sent a plain sportswoman to a foreign country for medical treatment. He saw to it that the palace-like apartments for thousands of families were built in a year for the plain workers and intellectuals. 109. He visited with his wife to congratulate the newly moved families, supplying them with kitchen utensils and other things. Personally picking up weeds in the interstice of roads in a people's recreation ground, he implanted the spirit of devoted service for the people in the mind of the officials. And he teaches not to give any slightest inconveniences to the people. With the special love for the children, he kisses on their cheeks, pats on their heads, kindly talks with them, and has photos taken with them, whenever he meets babies, kindergarten children, and pupils. Mentioning that mothers do not cast aside troublesome children and take more care of the disabled ones, he looks after everyone who follows the party, irrespective of their class status, family background, and socio-political life records. Thanks to his benevolent politics and all-embracing politics, those who defected from the country in arduous days return home. His ardent affection serves as great driving force to make the army and the people give full display of their mental strength for the rapid building of a thriving country. Therefore, the Korean people sing that the future of the country is bright with the benevolent and wise leader. 110. The Korean people are proud of their tradition of remaining loyal to the leader and following the spirit of self-reliance. They defeated 1,000,000 strong Japanese army by producing Yonjil bombs with self-reliance and liberated the country. They defeated the armed invasion of the U.S. imperialists and won victory in the war, greeting the day of second liberation. Leaping forward on Kolyma, they realized the industrialization within 14 years and built the socialist country independent in politics, self-sufficient in economy, and self-reliant in defense in a miraculous way. With the power of self-reliance, they heroically frustrated the suffocation moves of the imperialist allied forces and broke through the cutting edge on the road of Song'an. The Korean people who have grown up learning the history of self-reliance and the Kolyma speed have nothing impossible to do. With the great leader and the great people, the future of a thriving socialist country is bright. The building of a thriving socialist country. Author, R.I. Jonghwa. Publisher, Foreign Languages Publishing. House, the DPRK. Issued, June, Juche 103, 483552. Email, flph@starco.net.kp http://www.nainara.com.kp